It's about the view. It's like, it's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like, it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like, it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth and when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest.
Sonny Hostin just learned the hard way. You don't show up to a verbal smackdown armed with a butter knife when the other side's bringing blowtorches. Kat Timpf and Greg Gutfeld didn't just roast her. They straight up sautéed her emotions on live TV. The way they tag-teamed Sonny into what can only be described as a live, televised breakdown. Brutal.
He's such a group. It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has? 31.
31 Emmys.
This show has 31. I mean, I'd hate to see the conversations that don't make headlines.
Sonny Hostin was having a normal week. Or at least as normal as it gets when your job is sitting at a table on national television pretending your opinion is gospel. The View was rolling along smoothly, like a high school group project where everyone pretends they're not judging each other, but absolutely is. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, came the storm.
Now to some news. The feral monsters of The View say they've never heard of you-know-who. True, the show that makes mornings hell claim that my name doesn't ring a bell. It's time for...
Our view on The View. Ugh.
Yeah, the witch's coven finally shows me some lovin'. Yesterday on The View, yours truly was the subject of conversation. Apparently, the broads have no idea who I am, or so they say. Hit it, Gladys.
They said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time.
Who is he? No, really, who is he?
I don't watch the show.
He has a show.
I don't watch the
never
show.
heard of him.
Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
No. Next, Joy's going to say she's never heard of carbs.
Brutal. It's the kind of psychological unraveling that deserves its own chapter in a college textbook. How to trigger a meltdown with nothing but smirks and sarcasm. So what exactly did they say? What pushed Sonny to the edge of combustion in front of millions? Let's just say this roast was so vicious, even Joy Behar started socially distancing from her. Like Sonny who? It all started like any regular episode. If your version of normal includes sitting at a table looking camera ready while pretending your hot take is divine law. Sonny was doing her usual performance when, bam, out of nowhere, the studio turned into a battlefield. The vibe. Imagine a high school group project where everyone's smiling but secretly praying someone else fails. Now crank that energy up with bright lights and national viewership. Then it hit a full-force takedown. Sarcasm, maxed out. Mockery. Unfiltered. Chaos. Served fresh from the Gutfeld universe, where smug is the native tongue and subtlety gets left at the door. And the worst part, Sonny didn't even see it coming.
Seriously, her denial of knowing me is as believable as her red hair. But obsession? I mean, come on, Joy. Where would you even get that idea? Like Joy Behar's face, it's looking worse and worse by the day. More full of crap than Joy Behar after a night of scotch and Taco Bell. Her being named Joy is like me being named ugly. Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. It now smells like a humid day inside Joy Behar's moo-moo. The motives stink worse than Joy Behar's jog bra. I mean, assuming she jogs. Oh, wait, there she is.
Next up, wait till you hear the line that made the studio go silent. This wasn't a debate. Not even close. There was no dramatic stare-down. No camera-split confrontation between rival hosts. Nope. This was something way colder. Sonny Hostin got torched without even being in the room. What went down was a full-on drive-by roast. Satirical, sneaky, and savage. Kat Timpf and Greg Gutfeld didn't need a stage. They saw their target from across the media street and said, "Yeah, today's the day Sunny gets flattened on national TV." And just like that, they launched a verbal hit that left no survivors. Kat slid in like a stealth bomber cloaked in snark and dropped a glitter-coated payload of mockery that somehow sounded light-hearted but cut deep. Meanwhile, Gutfeld played the ringmaster, whipping the whole thing into a circus of smirks and punches. It wasn't just a roast. It was a live televised autopsy of everything they think is wrong with the too precious to touch daytime TV world. And Sunny, oh, she was the main exhibit. Let's set the record straight. There were no tears, no dramatic tissue moment, no shaky voice or public meltdown. But the unraveling, it was delicious. This was the slow burn kind, the kind where someone doesn't even know they're slipping. The type where that polished, "I've got it all together" vibe starts to split at the seams. Bit by bit, suddenly those razor-sharp talking points start landing like wet socks. The confident smirks start to look like someone trying a little too hard to keep it cute. Because here's the brutal truth. You can rehearse for debates, you can armor up for critics, but you can't brace for becoming the punchline. Especially not on a network you've been pretending doesn't even exist. And once that punchline hits, the spiral writes itself.
I just want to hit myself in the face so I can feel something. You know, it's like so boring. She's like, "Yeah, I like Instacart, but don't worry, I tip the poors." But, you know, Joy, you actually don't like Instacart and you do like the store. And then Joy is like, "Yeah, I do. I like to go to the store. I like to walk around and see what's at the store, what I do want, what I don't want. Maybe I want tuna fish and I just want to hit myself."
This wasn't just a roast. It was the kind of sneak attack that makes the studio lights flicker. And we're not talking about one snide remark. This was a full-on masterclass in tearing apart a persona, brick by brick. Sunny Hostin's entire media image. It was like a dramatic soap opera lawyer accidentally wandered into a savage comedy roast. She brings that serious energy, long-winded pauses, righteous vibes, and that "I'm speaking truth to power" attitude. And to her loyal daytime fans, that act usually plays. But when comedians get a hold of it, when actual professionals in the art of mockery put it under a microscope, suddenly that gravitas looks more like a monologue gone wrong. The dramatic pauses, meme material, the righteous fire, a perfect setup for someone else's punchline. And here's what made it hit even harder. Kat Timpf didn't even raise her voice. No yelling, no ranting. She didn't need to. All it took was a sly grin, a perfectly timed giggle, and that lethal bless your heart tone that hits harder than a slap with a velvet glove. She flipped Sunny's usual soapbox rants into something so twisted they barely resembled logic anymore. It was the kind of roast that made you ask, has anyone at The View even touched real life lately?
Were you pretty surprised that they didn't know what this show was?
No, I'm also not surprised that there's one part of the video from the show yesterday that you left out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, can we roll that, please?
I don't watch the show that much, but I've seen it.
Who is that?
Who is that?
Greg Gutfeld's one of the hosts of The Five, who, if I don't have anything nice to say, I generally don't say anything at all. I would just say this, his show should be called Kat Timpf, not Gutfeld, because she's the funny one on it.
Somebody's flirting with little Kat over here.
Well, she's the Republican one at the table, but I just think as a libertarian, I'm always looking to find common ground with other people because nobody really shares my politics. So I find some common ground in The View where she thinks I'm funny and I agree.
And then came Gutfeld, the chaos conductor himself, fueling the fire with precision. He didn't just crack jokes. He engineered a full-scale takedown, lining up Sunny's persona next to his crew's savage humor like it was a science fair project. Here's what happens when self-righteous outrage meets unapologetic sarcasm. The result: a roast so satisfying it felt like watching a cat knock over your grandma's favorite vase, and then walk away like it owned the place. This wasn't a fair fight. It was like watching an intellectual dodgeball match where Sunny never even touched the ball, just kept getting smacked in the face over and over while smiling through the pain and secretly checking for bruises during commercial breaks. And the real comedy? Oh, it came after the roast. Not from Sunny's mouth, but from her silence. No tweets, no clapback monologues, not even one of those shady Instagram stories with a random quote like, "Your peace is more important than their chaos." Nothing. Just stillness, the kind of quiet that screams, something shifted.
The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years. They're turning on me. So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull.
And Cat Timpf didn't even have to say another word. The damage was done. Then came the internet, and they didn't hold back. TikTok took Sunny's expressions and turned them into talking emojis. Twitter cooked up reaction GIFs so fast it was like a digital roast continuation. YouTube. Oh, they had entire breakdown videos comparing her tone shift to crime scene analysis. Frame by frame, dissecting every blink and breath like it was national news. Sunny didn't just get roasted, she got memed. And once that happens, no amount of righteous TV talk can undo it. While Sunny's die-hard fans clung to the idea that everything was fine, the rest of the world saw it for what it was. When you get publicly clowned on national TV by people who didn't even bother to walk through the door, that leaves a mark. This wasn't just a jab at Sunny Hostin. It was a precision air strike aimed straight at the View's entire aesthetic. The smugness, the high-horse moral lectures, the idea that every word said around that table is sacred scripture. And if you disagree, well, you must be problematic. Cat Timpf and Greg Gutfeld didn't just dismantle Sunny's take. They bulldozed the whole temple with nothing but a laugh, a smirk, and a perfectly timed roast. They exposed the cracks in the holy walls of daytime sanctimony. Let's be real, Sunny's not dumb. That's what makes this whole thing so wild. When someone smart gets wrecked by their own ego, it's not just funny, it's legendary. She thought sincerity made her untouchable. But here's the thing. Sarcasm doesn't care how real you think you are. It thrives on that earnest energy and chews through it like a buzzsaw through cardboard. And while the Gutfeld squad was already on to their next roast, probably pulling files on another cable host to turn into viral confetti, Sunny was stuck in the ruins, sipping coffee like nothing happened.
Musk's 4-year-old was mocked by The View over his name, prompting Musk's child to exclaim, "Daddy, I didn't know hippos could talk." Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
4 years, The View has floated in a bubble of applause and polished outrage. A VIP section of daytime TV where the price of entry is performance and the vibe is always, we know better. But satire, it doesn't care about your bubble. It pops it and leaves the mess for everyone to see. Outrage was business as usual until someone crashed the set, kicked over the hors d'oeuvres table, and dipped out with the champagne, leaving the host stunned and the audience roaring. There were no rebuttals, no fiery comeback speeches. That was the point. Kat and Greg didn't need a reply. The laughter was the reply. The silence was the echo. And Sunny trying to power through like nothing happened. That made it even worse. Because nothing screams, "I'm fine," like someone straining every muscle to look unbothered. Meanwhile, her fanbase started circling the wagons, dropping hashtags, posting essays, and spinning up think pieces in defense. But the rest of the internet, they were too busy replaying the roast, screen recording the cringe, and turning her expressions into TikToks faster than she could blink. Here's the real tea. When someone builds their whole on-camera identity on control and authority, watching them lose both, even for a second, is gold. It's like watching a swan slip on a banana peel and try to act like it was all part of the plan. Elegant chaos. That's where comedy does its damage. Doesn't check your degrees. Doesn't care about your job title or your years in media. Comedy scans for ego. And when it finds too much, it pounces.
Nah, you look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart. And I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well. And it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable.
And in that moment, Sunny wasn't dumb. She wasn't clueless. She was just too serious to notice she'd become the punchline. The view will roll on. Coffee mugs will clink. The pre-written banter will resume. And Sunny, she'll keep her spot as the moral compass of the table. But something shifted. A tiny crack in that polished TV persona. And now, every time someone rewatches that roast, every time a new meme drops, every awkward pause, that crack gets a little bigger. They didn't even have to say her name. And that's what made it so savage. So clean. So humiliatingly perfect. Gutfeld and Timpf basically held up a giant mirror, polished it with sarcasm, and just stood there, while Sunny Hostin sprinted across the room to punch her own reflection. That's when you know you've completely lost the plot. When someone throws a vague jab into the void and you're the one standing up in a crowd screaming, "How dare you?" As if the whole room had you in mind. That's not a rebuttal. That's a confession. Cat T, with that lethal mix of deadpan delivery and devil-may-care smirks, dropped a roast so casually brutal it was like watching someone toss a lit match into a room soaked in ego. And Sunny walked right into the flames, with a monologue. She wasn't dragged. She volunteered for the dragging. Dove in headfirst, arms wide open like, "You'll be hearing from my publicist," while the internet just clutched popcorn and watched her combust in 4K.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter.
Meanwhile, Gutfeld didn't flinch. He just kept laughing, like someone watching improv comedy where the actor still doesn't realize they are the punchline. That's the beauty of this whole mess. Timpf and Gutfeld barely broke a sweat. No receipts, no fact checks, no direct shots. Just a tone, a mocking, smug, slightly intellectual tone, served up with a splash of frat boy chaos. And that was enough to send Hostin spiraling like a cat in a yarn store with no exits. She unraveled all by herself. They didn't even have to push. She did all the work. Honestly, it was almost generous. They set the stage, and Sunny wrote the meltdown. Gutfeld could have been reading IKEA instructions live on air, and somehow Sunny would have twisted it into an attack on her moral authority. That's when you know it's over. Not when the other side fights back, but when someone starts defending themselves from shots that were never even fired. Sunny stormed out of a party she was never invited to, then called the cops because she didn't like the mood lighting. It's impressive, really. Losing a battle that never started, and doing it with dramatic pauses, theatrical glares, and the kind of over-serious delivery that belongs in a courtroom, not daytime TV. The viewers, they were winning, watching a TV host unravel over a roast that wasn't even name-dropped.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him
That's peak content. It felt like reality TV got drunk with Succession and gave birth to something messy, unstable, and absolutely binge-worthy. Not because it was elegant, not because it meant something, but because nothing beats watching ego try to wrestle with satire and get folded by its own self-importance. That's the game. When ego steps into the ring with humor, it never walks out clean. What it leaves behind: gold, viral footage, meme-worthy moments, sound bites that practically beg for auto-tune remixes. This wasn't about Sunny being weak. Is not. But satire doesn't play fair. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't care how serious you look. All it needs is timing. And Kat, Timpf, and Greg delivered with sniper precision. No yelling. No direct shots. Just a mocking tone with a splash of smug intellect. And boom. The roast landed. The moment passed, but Sunny. She kept going like the fire was still lit. And that's what made it unforgettable. So as Sunny polishes her next monologue, trying to reclaim that moral high ground, Kat's probably somewhere sipping a martini and laughing. Greg's outlining his next roast, with her face still taped to the dartboard. Not out of malice, but because nothing is funnier than someone pretending they're untouchable while quietly spiraling. And now, the audience saw behind the curtain. Once you've watched the wizard fumble with a fog machine, it's hard to pretend the magic's still real. The harshest punchline was never spoken. It was delivered in sarcasm, wrapped in mockery, and served stone cold. And for Sunny, the roast may be done, but she's still cooking. If that breakdown hit as hard for you as it did for her, smash that like button. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next takedown. And drop a comment if you think Sunny's still searching for the off switch. See you in the next one.